Good afternoon, parents. Thank you for over 1,000 people who viewed my video that we released this weekend. But I did say to you that I would respond to your questions. And looking at the questions, they fall within two categories. So let me first of all talk about structure and safety and your input, opinions, etc. I plan to do that in another format, but I do want to always be responsive to anything that you might ask. We had three, and still do have three options from our State Board of Education. Number one, we can stay totally down on remote. And you might ask, how long would that be? It's my opinion, and I think probably it's shared by most of you, that minimally, if we decided to stay on remote, that we would be on remote through 2020 and perhaps the larger part of 2021. I say that because there is no vaccine. We're working on it, but we're not making progress in that direction. In the last couple of weeks, it seems as if there is a spread throughout the United States of at least people who are tested positive for the COVID-19. Easily, this virus is going to permeate our environment for the end of 2020, and I think that we all realize that. So our first option, as I said, is to stay down on remote. The second option that was presented to us was to create a hybrid. In other words, a combination of in-person education and remote education. And then the third option, which was simply to open as we would have in pre-pandemic days. And there are several school districts that are choosing that third option. The second option is what we looked at. How could we provide education, in-person education for you, for your children that are in need of that. In particular, we think that special education children have been underserved with remote education, and certainly the youngest of our children, where it necessitates an adult being present simply to give them leadership and to help them. So I'm not going to give a total presentation today, but I did want to respond to your question. Our committees, and we have over 30 people who've been working on this for 2 months, looking at all the nuances and weighing this about what it is that we want to do. We're proposing a hybrid or a combination of in-person education with remote education. On Mondays and Wednesdays, half of our population would be in. On Tuesday and Thursday, the other half would be in. And Friday would be a remote day. But this would be done in a new manner. Let me give you an example on that. And at some later point, I'm going to get into the technology involved. But let's say on Monday, there are 10 to 12 children in front of a teacher. Behind the teacher on Google Meets would be the rest of the class as they listen, and if the teacher decides, participates in the class. And so the class comes together, and we feel that they would benefit from both the in-person and the interaction between the total class. Part of the class in front of the teacher, the second part of the class would be through the use of technology, but the teacher would be able to hear, but what's more important, the children would hear the presentation by the teacher. The next day, which is Tuesday, then a second group of students would come in, but the same process. In other words, an in-person presentation to students who are in front of the teacher, but a presentation to the use of, most of you are probably more familiar with the term Zoom. I was told not to use the term Zoom, but through Zoom or as we refer to it now, Google Meets. Students would be able to hear, they would be able to take notes, and according to the new guidance, that's how we would take attendance. Attendance would be taken not only by the children that are seen by the teacher in person, but students that signed in through the use of technology. As the week goes on, I'm going to give you an idea of our buy in the area of technology, because I think that we're going to be looking for a solution to how we educate our children and do it safely for the rest of this school year, if not a year or two to come. Even if there's a vaccine, this is millions and millions of people in order to create a herd immunity that would have to make use of the vaccine, and that could be a long time. But the major question that I think I know you're asking, I received 13 questions. I'm uncomfortable with my child coming to school. We understand that, and that's why we created an option. Let's say that you're in the Monday group, and you have decided, because they're your children, we don't make decisions for your children, that's up to you, that you do not want your child at this point to come to school for face-to-face instruction at any point, at least in the short run. And I'm saying at least in the short run, because it would be our hope that at some point all of us would be back together. Then what would happen is you would receive a form from us. You would opt out of the in-person instruction, and you would become a permanent part, at least for one marking period, because we're going to keep reviewing this to make sure if that's still your intent, your child would become a part of the remote population. So the same instruction, the same teachers. The teachers are essential, but this instruction would be coming from within a school. But those parents who would choose to have their children have in-face instruction, those children would be able to come on that schedule, but we would never have an overcrowded school. We would never have large class sizes, because for those who are in front of the teacher, half of the school, and that goes for all of our 8 schools, from Southland down to the Arcadia and the Matteson, half of the children would be in at one time. I thought about everything that you communicated with me, and there were about 14 parents. Some parents feel that the school is the safest place for their child, and we're going to do everything possible. Later this week, I'll go over sanitation. I'll go over and review transportation, food, everything that we're doing. However, safety is not only something that is dependent upon the structure. Safety is a mindset. If you don't feel that your child is safe, or there is one parent that said that their child has asthma, then all that you would have to do would be to opt for your child to become part of the remote population, and they would continue on with the same quality of education. I think it's important that we continue to communicate. It's important that I hear from you, but never would we even consider creating a structure where anyone is mandated to do anything. Each of you has to evaluate, first of all, what we're doing and why we're doing it, but I think that you know why we're doing it, simply because education is important. But one of the things that we will do is to include an in-service, a video that will help you, because you will learn about Chromebooks. We bought 1,400 of them. You will learn about our laptops, because they're going to permeate our environment. I think that you already know a lot about iPads, but every child, kindergarten through 12th grade, is going to have a device where we can communicate. And so I think that that was the problem During the spring semester, we were down for a long period of time, as you know. But I think that our communication was sporadic in some cases. But this summer, our Board of Education hired a company that went into all of our schools that increased and reinforced our internet service, that expanded our bandwidth. We've done everything that we can to facilitate this communication that has to go forward between the teacher and the student. But the option is yours. I will be giving you more information about the structure of the day, but it kind of intrigues me to think that each family, each child will have an opportunity to decide, do I want to move forward within the school environment, or do I feel more comfortable being at home? But I think what is key to this is that they will see and they will be able to interact with their teacher, because that interaction, to me, is what education is all about. And so I will continue to communicate with you, but what I want to assure you is that the choice is yours. It always was. And even though things are different, this is our new normal, this is our new normal. But with the new normal, what happens if the governor closes us down again and we're totally on remote? Our goal would be that we're strong enough that we never lose a beat, that even though the governor might say the schools are closed and everyone shelters in, that we will still be able to communicate on a daily basis in terms of where your child is, and that we'll be able to move children forward. But our first goal is going to be to find out, is there any regression? We're assuming there is. You know that every summer when we reopen in the fall, we know that there are some students that take a step back. But this is a much, much longer time period. By the time we reopen, it'll probably be 14 weeks. Can that be overcome? Of course it can be. But what we're trying to do with our structure, what we're going to do with the structure, is to create a structure that you're comfortable with, first of all, that the children feel that there is an engagement because they've been alone. And we do think that they need to re-engage with their teachers, they need to re-engage with the students, and that we have resources now that we've had time to plan that we want to share with you. And so it's very important that we're on the same page. I'm always available, but know that as a district, as a superintendent, we don't make decisions when the decision should lie with you. So as we move forward, I'll be asking you to think through that and to decide, is the best place for my child within the school, which will be much smaller. If you're in Southland, instead of 560, it would be about 270 students. If you're at the Indiana, there would be about 125 students in the building. In other words, fewer of us, to limit the exposure to social distance and to make sure that we can keep students as safe as possible. But the second question that I received was about masks. I can't be very helpful with that. We must all wear masks within every school, every teacher, janitor, whatever your classification is, but also our students. We have to wear masks for a simple reason, that there's no vaccine. The only way we can keep children safe is that the germs never permeate our mouths and our nose, and so the only way that you can do that is with a facial covering. But the other thing is social distancing. We're going to open so that only our children have plenty of space, that they have plenty of air, circulation, but there would only be half as many of us in the school environment. And then the last thing is the temperature taking. We'll be doing that not only when they get on the bus, when they get off of the bus. Now, a couple of you said we're not doctors, and that's totally true. That's totally true. However, we believe with a registered nurse in every school, which actually it's not unique to this school year, we've always had that, that if there is any kind of an issue, that we can notify you that there will be a response, but that a registered nurse would be able to tell whether or not there's a problem, because every problem doesn't mean that it's COVID-19. But it's important to us that we do those three things, that we mask, that we social distance, and we finally are taking temperatures. But there was one question about sanitation. How will we clean our washrooms? I will either verbally or in writing give you a structure for the cleaning of the washrooms, but we're increasing our janitorial staff by 20 people. We need to be constantly cleaning, re-cleaning, and that requires more people. Just a simple ask, if you would like to join us in a different capacity, or if you know someone, would you please ask them to look on our website? We are seeking to hire immediately 20 new janitors and to train them so that we can increase our sanitation. But this is a complex issue. I watched CNN this morning. I know what's out there. But we want to do two things. Number one, to make sure that our children are safe. Our children are safe. Our children are safe. But secondly, that whatever the environment, that we provide an education so that they can begin to move forward. It's important because what happens a year from now, what happens 2 years from now, what happens 3 years from now, we don't know that. But I believe firmly that if we can create a technological base that is strong enough that we can communicate on a continuous basis with you and your child, that we will be able to move forward in a productive manner. So thank you for allowing me to answer two of the questions. I'll be back later on this week, either Thursday or Friday, with details about the structure. But I think that you understand that, number one, only half of us will be in, that there will be a Monday, Wednesday group, a Tuesday, Thursday group. Friday we're on remote, but that you have the opportunity to decide, do I want my child in the classroom for interaction with the teacher, or do I feel more comfortable with my child being at home? So thank you for allowing me to respond to you always, and I'm very appreciative of your support. This is probably the most difficult thing that we've ever worked through, not only as a school district, but as a country. I remain ever hopeful. I think it's going to take a long time, but I'm still hopeful that we're strong enough to solve this problem. And whatever we do, however, we'll do it together. Thank you so much.